time for Fully Threaded Radio.
It is Fully Threaded Radio, voice of the FCH Sourcing Network. This is Eric Dudas, and I'm joined by the co-host of Fully Threaded. He's the J. Robert Oppenheimer of the online fastener world. Of course, he's Brian Musker. Brian, how are you?
I'm pretty good. I think it's a little bit much to be associating me with Robert Oppenheimer, one of my heroes, I might say.
Well, I know that, but the fact is, everything you do is a big bang.
That'll work, okay.
Thanks for joining us, everyone, on episode 13 of Fully Threaded Radio. This is going live on the fullythreaded.com website on October 14th, 2010. I think you're going to really enjoy today's lineup, and here it is. We're going to kick things off with the Fastener News Report, a news segment by Fastener Technology International magazine and editor Mike McNulty. Then we'll talk with Bonnie Carter of Metric Screw and Tool Company. We had a great conversation with her covering all kinds of subjects, and I know you'll enjoy that. And finally, with our ongoing NFDA coverage, we've got a couple of segments from the NFDA Fall Meeting that took place in Chicago a couple of weeks ago, and we've got the conclusion and question and answer session from the panel discussion on technology in the fastener industry. So it's going to be another good one.
Good, okay. Can't wait, actually.
We are the people who bring you FastenersClearinghouse.com, and I hope everybody out there is using Fasteners Clearinghouse as a sourcing tool whenever the need comes up. There's over 500,000 line items in our database currently, and you can use it to search and source at no charge at www.fastenersclearinghouse.com. And, of course, if you're somebody who has inventory in the warehouse that is getting a little dust on it and you're looking for a place to market it and show it to the world, we're your people. Get out there, take a look at the Join the Network link, and you can get all the details. It's very, very easy to get your information online with FastenersClearinghouse.com, and that's really our mission. So Fully Threaded Radio is our way of communicating to the community, and please don't hesitate to get with us anytime. I'll give you the email address. Here it is, ftr@fullythreaded.com. That's ftr@fullythreaded.com.
And also, I'd like to just remind you that it's very important to deal with the S in fasteners, okay? It's a fasteners clearinghouse, and I dealt with a number of people recently at a meeting, every one of whom referred to it as Fastener Clearinghouse. Okay? Now, that leads you to a completely different site. So remember the S, load up some stuff.
Well, I mentioned it's episode number 13, and on our last episode, number 12, we had some excellent feedback, and we really do appreciate that. Each episode, we seem to attract a whole new group of people, and one of the things that we covered last episode was the Global Fastener Network, which is a new endeavor by Rob Lucas of Fidelis Fasteners, and lo and behold, the new American Fastener Journal came this week, and the cover story follows up on our conversation very well. Did you get a chance to look at this, Brian?
Yeah, I did actually, and it's pretty informative. And, it was a little bit hard from what Rob was saying in the previous episode of Fully Threaded, but this lays it out a bit easier, okay? I suggest anyone read it.
Yeah, and, I was talking with Rob actually last night, and he was telling me that he gets really, really good response from American Fastener Journal, and he's also got the back cover, I noticed. So apparently it's working for him. But we sure do wish him success, and we're going to definitely be keeping our eye on what he's up to with Global Fastener Network.
Yep, we will.
So, other comments that came in, you spent some time at the Pacific West Fastener Association last week, didn't you, at their fall meeting? And I guess a few people came up to you and had some very complimentary things to say.
Yes, actually, there was both. I had a mixture of both. I had people who were, who told me how much they enjoy listening to it, and other people who had never heard of it. Just shows you what our emailing does and the overall impact of email. I mean, that actually came up at the PacWest meeting. It was a really, really interesting conference.
Well, was it well attended? Did you see a lot of people there that were familiar with?
Yeah, actually, I really, really enjoyed it. It was good. And it's really, for us, and for me particularly, it's good to put a face to a name. I mean, a number of these people I've really talked to over the years, but this time I actually could see them and sit down and have a talk to some of them. I didn't get to see everyone, but, it started off on Wednesday. I wasn't there for the Wednesday start because that was really their set up, and it was really the board of directors meeting. Then Thursday things really started. It was a golf game. That was Thursday, October 7th. That's the golf in the morning. And then in the afternoon, we had a presentation from Sally Giblin from Lockton Insurance Brokers, and she covered the really details and explaining the changes that are really coming about relating to the new Healthcare Act, really as it affects both employers and employees. And make no mistake, there's a lot of changes coming about. Not all good. In fact,
well, we knew that.
Right, most not good, it would be fair to say. Then Thursday afternoon, there was a sort of an interesting forum for a ghost panel discussion / forum for both the business owners and executives of the fastener industry, really discussing parts of the industry, how people communicate. That was where it came up, the fact that email has proved to be staggeringly unsuccessful, as we know ourselves, actually.
You mean as a marketing device?
Well, as a marketing device and as a means of communication. I mean, the Pac West was saying that they changed beginning of this year to using email as opposed to letters, and they said that most people did not receive their emails. Now, clearly, you and I know their emails have gone out and gone somewhere. They just haven't gone in front of the person's eyes they've been sent to.
Right.
They've been picked up by spams and things like that or whatever. Friday was really interesting. We had Anne-Marie Houtailing from the Houtailing Group sat and discussed business development. She's a fascinating speaker, very energetic young lady actually, from San Diego. And then in the afternoon there was the annual Distributors versus Suppliers softball game, and apparently the result is always the same, which is that the distributors trounced the suppliers, and then had a very nice reception dinner, hosted actually by Dee Silver, who is a real card. And I was at a table with a couple of our members, some of the people from Porteous and Joe Truckee and his brother, and we decided in the end that it was, and I drew the ace, which I knew was a dangerous card to have drawn, but that really meant I had to nominate people to do these things, one of which was trying to work out how you got an Oreo off your forehead into your mouth without touching it.
Well, it's good to know you were engaged in strictly fastener-related activity on this junket.
Right. This is really high-tech fastener stuff. The fasteners did come into this because one of the tests was to stack up a set of 3/8 nuts, I think they were, on top of each other. They had to stack 8 on top of each other by letting them. They were skewered on the thing like a shish kebab stick, and so the idea was you had to get them from here onto the another one that was already sitting there, and then stack up a set that did not fall over. Well, our table was not one of the best performers, but turned out to be a blessing in disguise because we decided that the losers really were the winners because we did not have to continue on contesting this thing. So, but it was a lot of fun, and then Saturday morning started up with Anne-Marie Houtailing again, and she was really describing sales, different approaches to sales, ethics involved in sales. The difficulty of making a phone contact, first contact via phone. It's hard to get through to the person you want to. She had a few strategies of doing that. Covered the realities of the fact that, there's just some people you may not even want to have to do business with.
Yeah, I know that feeling.
Yeah, I know, right. Yeah, they're the ones who are still clutching the Gutenberg press, okay? The original one. And then we had finally a talk from a guy called Carmen Vitullo, and he really discussed, it was headed up as fastener specifications, but really he was discussing in a fastener company how you really deal with technical knowledge. How do you make sure you are imparting correct knowledge to your customers, and how you make sure you're more specifically you're not imparting false information or bad information to them. And it was a really interesting talk, actually.
Well, you came back with a real head of steam, and you were turbocharged, so I know that the Pac West crew did a really good job.
Oh, they did, yep. And one of the things that came up again was the whole issue of, what do we do with the social media? And the questions about, well, should we even care about it? And clearly, from all the talks we've been to, you have to care.
Well, this is a recurrent theme. Now, we know that it was covered at the Pac West meeting. As we're going to hear in one of today's segments, this was a major theme at the NFDA Fall Meeting. And then, as we announced last episode, we're going to be doing a presentation at the NIFS West Show coming up in Las Vegas. And on Tuesday, November 9th at 3 p.m., we'll be presenting a little bit of information about social media at the show. So, yeah, that's definitely a theme. Speaking of which, I was looking around on Fastenerblog.net, and Traveling Salesman was commenting in a recent post about everybody's buzzing right now. Are you going to Vegas? Are you going to Vegas? So it's that time of year, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, it's one of the things that questions we ask people, because we encourage them to at least stop by the booth and say hello, because we spend the time on the phone. It's the ones who come by our booth, especially if they don't live in Chicago, that we get to see. It's good.
Oh, heck yeah. Yeah, the phones here at FCH are buzzing. We're starting to light them up and invite everybody out to Vegas to say hello.
Yep.
And I mentioned that we're going to get into the Fastener News Report, which is a new segment for Fully Threaded, in just a moment. But we have a news item to announce that just came across the desk, and that is that after about 25 years in business, Manufacturers Fastener World is announcing that they are ending business.
Wow.
Yeah, it was a little surprising to hear that news this afternoon. I actually called Kevin over there to get it right out of the horse's mouth, and he said that they're going to have a blurb out on their webpage very shortly, and he sent me a news release that they put out. But, after about 25 years, no more MFW.
Well, that means that when someone types in Fasteners Clearinghouse into Google, there'll be one less entry, because I noticed that MFW had the words Fasteners Clearinghouse on their homepage.
Right. Well, we knew we hit the big time when that sort of thing started happening, right?
Right. Yeah, there's a couple of others who have already taken so when you type in Fasteners Clearinghouse, you go somewhere completely different if you aren't careful.
Well, Kevin wanted me to mention that if you are a customer of MFW and you made regular purchases from them, that you should contact him right away so that you can take care of whatever stock they have available. And with that piece of news, why don't we move along to the Fastener News Report with Mike McNulty.
Cool. Okay.
Thanks, Eric. This is Mike McNulty. I'm the editor of Fastener Technology International magazine, and I'm pleased to bring you the premiere installment of the Fastener News Report. This is a feature of Fully Threaded Radio, which we're planning to do on a regular basis, and it'll typically be brought to you in 5 different segments. Those segments are what we call our lead story. Next will be newsmaker highlights, followed by resume builders, events on the horizon, and we'll finish it up with the back page. And our lead story this week is the global fastener industry is on the road to recovery. In its latest report on the fastener industry, the Fredonia Group forecasts that world demand for industrial fasteners will expand at a whopping 8.5% per year to top $80 billion in the year 2014. Global motor vehicle output is expected to make a strong recovery from the declines registered in the second half of the last decade, and fixed investment levels in most areas will continue to rise worldwide. The Asia-Pacific region will perform the best with an average of 10.3 annual growth expected, and China is the top country at almost 13% per year growth. In developed regions, North America will grow at 8%, and Europe will weigh in at 5.6%. And despite these rosy predictions, fastener sales gains will be restrained in some markets by the use of alternative joining technologies such as adhesives, as well as production methods that use fewer fasteners. China remains the long-term favorite country, and Fredonia says that it will soon pass the USA as the world's #1 producer of fasteners. In fact, in 2019, Fredonia says China will have a fastener market larger than Japan and the USA combined. Fastener makers in developed countries like the USA, Japan, and Western Europe will still lead the world in production of more advanced, highly engineered fasteners, but China is closing the technological gap. With all this talk on China's growth, some may be forgetting about Taiwan, but local reports tell us that the Taiwanese fastener industry is surging. Taiwan's Industry and Technology Intelligence Service estimates that overall fastener production in Taiwan will finish the year about 30% higher than it did in 2009. It also confirms that the first half of 2010 was 50% stronger than last year. This good economic news coincides nicely with the opening of the first ever Taiwan International Fastener Show, which opens next week in the heart of the country's fastener industry in the southwest corner of the island country. This exhibition will feature around 200 exhibitors of fasteners and fastener-making machinery and tooling suppliers. Next month, in November, all trade show eyes will be focused on Las Vegas, the site of the 14th Annual Industrial Fastener Show West. Show management is reporting a 13% increase in exhibit space and a strong increase in advanced registration compared to 2009, which was a down year compared to 2008 and 2007, which was the peak year for the show. With nearly 600 exhibitors of fasteners, machinery, and tooling, this show is the largest of its kind in North America. In addition to the exhibition, the show includes a full slate of meetings and workshops as well as a welcome reception. Also in November, Loomis International is hosting an open house in South Beloit, Illinois that will feature an operational Nakashimata parts former and an RMG wire drawer. If you're interested in attending this open house, contact Randy Loomis at 815-636-7200 or send him an email at randy@loomisltd.com. Closing out our lead story coverage, China Fastener Info reports that it successfully held its 4th fastener trade show in China last September. The international show attracted over 200 exhibiting companies and visitors from 38 countries. The show organizers have 2 similar shows planned for 2011, their 5th and their 6th fastener trade shows, one in April and the other in November. Moving on to the next segment, we call the Fastener Newsmaker Highlights. We have learned that Ornit Incorporated, the USA division of the Israel-based blind rivet manufacturer Ornit, has appointed Joe Butvin and Associates of Cleveland, Ohio, as its sales representative in North America. In Pennsylvania, Penn Engineering reports that it has acquired QRP Incorporated out of Leland, North Carolina. QRP specializes in the manufacture of quick-release pins, lanyards, latches, and access fastener products. In Peru, Illinois, Untitled announced that it has secured $874,000 from the state of Illinois to build a 14,000 square foot addition to make bolts for wind turbines. The Illinois Department of Commerce and Economic Opportunity supplied the grant, which originally came from the Federal Economic Stimulus Program. The nut and bolt maker expects to hire 20 more employees and add $6.5 million in sales by 2003 from this new operation. The Elgin Fastener Group says it has reached an agreement for sales representation in Wisconsin and Northern Illinois with Harwood Associates. Reinhold Wirth, the founder and president of Wirth Group, was recently interviewed by the Financial Times in London. Wirth says that his company is now on track to grow its sales by 700 million euros to a total level of 8.2 billion euros this year. And he predicts by 2020 that the group's pre-tax profit, which is set to rise at least 350 million euros this year, will also triple to more than 1 billion euros. These bold predictions come after the group experienced its first drop in annual sales and profit, a decrease of 15% and 50% respectively in 2009. Modern Distribution magazine has reported that Fastenal CFO Dan Florness told attendees at the Morgan Keegan 2010 Industrial Transportation Conference that Fastenal is back on a path of growth. He said that Fastenal has plans to drive operating margins higher by increasing its average turnover per store. Florness says that the goal is to take the average store volume of $70,000 to $75,000 a month up to a level of $125,000 per month in sales. The distributor also has a goal of growing from 2,400 locations in the U.S. and Canada up to a potential of 3,500 locations. Precision Castports has a conference call scheduled for October 21st to discuss its second quarter results. NEWSstocks.com reports that the company is expected to benefit from a recovery in the aerospace industry. Chief Executive Mark Dunnigan said that he expects aircraft fastener sales to increase going forward, particularly as production of the Boeing 787 Dreamliner ramps up. Dunnigan said that these fasteners are worth millions of dollars a plane for the company. And finally, the last newsmaker highlight is that the Industrial Products Division of Dynacast in Charlotte, North Carolina now offers custom molded rubber products serving a wide variety of industries, including rubber molded fastener assembly components. On to resume builders. Kelly Smejkal has joined EFC International as a sales engineer for Nebraska, North Dakota, South Dakota, Iowa, and Minnesota. Liam Foy is the new Director of Sales and Marketing for Penn Engineering. Richard McVaugh has been promoted to President and COO of Fastener Distribution and Marketing Company. New sales personnel reporting to him at the company include Peggy Harvey, Barry Williams, and Steve Heenan. Terry Elkins has been promoted to the position of Vice President of Quality at the Elgin Fastener Group. And finally, Joe Peplinski is the new VP of Operation at Beacon Fasteners and Components. Moving along to fastener events on the horizon, we've got short reports on 4 events that are taking place in 2011. First up, industrial professionals involved in fastener, fixing, and assembly sectors from Europe and all over the world will meet in Germany for Fastener Fair Stuttgart 2011, being held next February in Germany. Over 500 exhibitors from 30 countries have already secured their exhibit space, and the show organizer has added a 3rd exhibition hall to meet demand. In 2009, the show had more than 600 exhibitors, and it's held every other year. The National Industrial Fastener and Mill Supply Expo East, scheduled for April 26th and 27th, 2011 in Columbus, Ohio, is the expanded version of the well-known NIFS East Show, which now includes mill supply exhibitors. The second staging of the All-American Fastener Show, where fastener people meet in the middle of the country, is set for May 12th and 13th, 2011 in Branson, Missouri. And finally, on fastener events on the horizon, we're pleased to report that when it opens next June, Fastener Tech 11 will be expanded in terms of technical and business content. New educational opportunities are being prepared, and SurfIn 2011, a surface finishing trade show and conference, has decided to co-locate alongside Fastener Tech, which is known as the All-Fastener Industry event in the heart of the fastener industry. And finally, today we have back page reports, some personal interest stories. Some people say that the fastener industry or people in the industry are slow to adopt the latest information technology. But I'm happy to report that the Industrial Fasteners Institute, also known as the IFI in Independence, Ohio, has launched a new website at indfast.org. I visited the site, and it contains useful technical information like the IFI Technology Connection online technical support service and the Find a Supplier feature, which makes it easy for visitors to find sources of domestic fasteners. Congratulations are in order for Ken Forging Incorporated, as they are celebrating 40 years of business this year. Ken Forging proudly makes high-quality forged industrial hardware in the USA, and they wish to thank their employees, customers, and suppliers for helping them reach this milestone. They will be at the Las Vegas show in booth 630 next month if you want to stop by and congratulate them. And our final story is that the Pacific West Fastener Association reports a successful fall conference last week in Lake Tahoe, reporting the final score of their annual softball game, suppliers 22, distributors 12. If you'd like to submit news, comments, or corrections to this report, send me an email at McNulty@FastenerTech.com or visit FastenerTech.com to stay up to date on the fastener industry.
Coming up next, Bonnie Carter of Metric Screw and Tool.
FastenersClearinghouse.com. Search and source from over 500,000 line items, all just a mouse click away and available at no charge. When the need arises, you won't find a better place to locate hard-to-find fastener inventory. It's where you need to be.
This is Joe Truckee of Cal Fasteners, and Fasteners Clearinghouse works for us.
This is Robert Wanzer, and Fasteners Clearinghouse works for American Imperial.
This is Andy Pell from ScrewCrew.com, and FCH works for the fastener industry.
Join the sourcing network now and show your inventory to a whole new market. Turn slow movers into cash. List up to 10,000 line items. Show them to distributors only or to the world. FastenersClearinghouse.com. It's where you need to be.
Hey, this is Peter from AspenFastener.com, your ultimate online fastener resource, and you're listening to Fully Threaded Radio.
We talk a lot about metric and DIN specifications on Fully Threaded, and we're joined now by someone who knows a whole lot about that. She's Bonnie Carter with Metric Screw and Tool Company out of Wakefield, Massachusetts. Bonnie, welcome and thanks for joining us on Fully Threaded.
Well, I'm glad to have an opportunity to talk with you folks.
You mean talk again, because you and I have talked many times.
That's true. We have spoken many, many times, and it's been some of the teething problems of getting metric properly set up online, and we're quite satisfied with how it's working.
Well, glad to hear that. Yeah, you've been with us for a little while selling on Fasteners Clearinghouse, and we're very, very glad to know about that. What can you tell us about Metric Screw and Tool? Give our listeners a little bit of a thumbnail.
Okay. The company was originally started in 1851 by Roy Ferner, who was the head of the Bureau of Standards at the time, as the story goes. And he saw a need for fasteners to some sort of set standard. And most of those he brought in from Europe. In 1930, the company developed the name of Metric Screw and Tool Company, and we started bringing in more of the fasteners from Germany under the DIN standards. And in 1970, my husband bought the company. I joined the company in 1976. We've got a dozen employees, and we work all around the world.
That's a fantastic story. In the early days, what really was the application for most of this metric material that you were dealing with? Was it automotive?
When I started in 76, it was a lot of automotive, and people who had purchased the licensing rights to manufacture something from Europe. If we were going to start doing some serious exporting, we needed to have more metric in the products that were going out. Now, we had the metric bill of 76, which was basically nothing more than a blessing to continue using whatever standard you were using, but it would have been nice if it had been metric. George Washington was the first one to offer a metric bill, and it still is not full compliance today. Many of the school systems are teaching about metric and in metric units, and I think that's where we have to start to change the country over. Notably, my kitchen is not metric.
Right. Okay. Well, of course, as we've discussed before on this show, I went through the process of converting from the inches and feet to metrics when I was at engineering school in New Zealand, and it was a little bit horrific for a start, but having sat and lived with it, I can't imagine why anyone would even keep with the old system, actually.
As far as my understanding on metric, it is strictly in the fastener end of things, and I don't understand the U.S. fastener system at all because I've only learned in the metric system. And it's very simple. It makes a great deal of sense, and you're not constantly going through between number 1032s and quarter inches and all of these other systems. It works very, very smoothly.
Well, that's always been the argument. Now, getting back to something you said a moment ago, George Washington, the George Washington, was the first to make this proposal. Is that true?
Yes, he thought that things should be measured in metric measure, and it just never gained any traction, and we continued along in the imperial system of UK homeland.
Right. Wow.
Huh.
Well, he always was kind of a Tory at heart, wasn't he?
So since this time, since 1976, do you see that the overall percentage usage, say, is sort of flat? Do you see it increasing in the U.S.?
It is increasing because we're exporting more product. And to bring this back to an automotive analogy, in 76, nobody could find a 6-millimeter wing nut to put onto the top of an air cleaner on a Volkswagen. And we can't be doing the same thing to the rest of the world. So if we want to market internationally, it really should be using metric fasteners and metric measure.
That is true.
Now, are these fasteners that you're exporting, these are manufactured in the U.S.?
There's very, very little actually manufactured in DIN standard here in the States.
That's what I thought.
Most of what we are selling, we import as much as we can from Europe and then through wherever else we have to secure the product.
Do you see a degree of resistance to using metrics as opposed to the good old, what we call imperial, U.S. imperial? Do you see that?
Noting the fact that I'm considerably over 40, it's the older engineers who are very reluctant to give in to metrication.
We are not discussing age, okay?
I think that if I were perhaps back on the engineering side of things, I would not be as happy to have to learn another entirely new system. But I do think that the resistance in the younger engineers is a lot easier to overcome because they are learning the proper hard facts and not just trying to soft convert. Now, NASA had an issue with soft converting. They missed on targeting a launch because somebody forgot to convert it to metric and program it properly.
Well, remember, there's a much more famous problem with NASA because, remember, they developed a part of the, what I believe was a space station that simply didn't fit together because the measurements, the Americans and the Europeans talking about two completely different things. And a whole multi-billion-dollar section was completely scrapped.
And that's why soft converting should not be allowed to happen. It's one system or the other entirely.
What exactly do you mean by soft converting?
That was the process of saying, well, a quarter inch will be 6.3. Up until, I believe it was GM made a decision to use 6.3 bolts, they weren't made any place in the world. It was a concession to soft conversion.
Yeah, that's actually true. I mean, as you see that, Eric, then some of the stuff that comes through to us, there's
absolutely, you would be showing those items.
Right, 4.2 or something is another one, isn't it? Is that right? It's one of these weird sizes, 5.5 or something. Yeah. Yeah, they're not really metrics. They pretend metrics.
Got it. So they're kind of standard American sizes expressed as a decimal.
Yeah.
Yes.
Right. Well, let's talk for a second about something that you mentioned a moment ago, which is exporting. What are you seeing right now? There's a lot going on with the dollar losing value and so forth, but that's had some favorable effects on exporting. Are you seeing any of that, Bonnie?
We're not seeing it directly. Our customers may be seeing this. Right now, the bulk of our business is coming through medical equipment manufacturers, homeland security product manufacturers, people who are building specialty machinery to get things going again in the industry. So where we are doing exporting, it's very, very minor compared to what our customers are exporting. And we've seen a 22% increase in our business this year.
Wow.
Is that 22% over last year? Or because last year was pretty
well, since 2008. We started feeling the recession here the end of 2008.
Okay. Right.
Now, where it has hurt us with the dollar falling against other currencies is buying product in.
Right.
And I'm trying to smooth that out with longer purchasing forecasts, but it's one of the unpredictables in the industry. It affects not just the price of the item, but also the cost of getting it here.
Now, have you found yourself running with slimmer inventories?
Not really. As a metric specialist, we know pretty well what people are looking for. Most of our customers are fairly long-term customers, so we have stayed properly inventoried even through the recession. I did not let the inventory drop down by very much.
Okay. A question I want to ask you, you and I have discussed this over the past few months. It's refreshing and unusual in this rather conservative old business for a woman to be involved in your position. Now, do you find resistance to the fact that you are not a good old boy?
Only a little bit, and it's mostly at the end user part of things. They're just a little reluctant to think that a woman might have a fairly good grasp on what they're looking for on product. As far as working with other distributors and manufacturers, I think that they've had enough exposure to women in this industry having a good grasp on what they need to know. And more of the colleges and trade schools are beginning to teach information about metric fasteners. So it's easier for a woman to get the information rather than just working time and grade on the job to learn things.
Okay.
But by and large, the fastener industry's been pretty welcoming.
I would say so. And there are a number of women that have been within the industry for quite a long time. And as far as metric goes, a lot of the companies started off as very small family-owned businesses. And it was husband and wife working together and bringing the children in as they got old enough. So there are still some of the old mom and pops that are still out there. And once we realized that the women did a great job on the phone and they knew the product, the reluctance to have just women on the phone or any women on the phone has totally gone by the wayside.
Mm-hmm. Okay, well, that's good. I've got another question for you, which is, it seems to be that the British threads are handled by metric distributors. What on earth is the tie between some of the old British standard fine and those threads? How come metric people are the ones who deal with these British threads?
Because we were the folks who were daring enough to jump off the iceberg and try something new, bringing all of that metric stuff in. And bringing the British stuff along wasn't difficult because it was coming from the same part of the world that most of us were buying from at that point, and nobody else wanted to do anything with it. So as thread specialists outside of the U.S. Standards, we tended to be a little more liberal about bringing in something besides just metric.
Now, for the British threads, and we have a bit of commentary about these unusual threads. Most people have no idea what they are, so they assume that they're metric because they just don't fit into anything else. But what's the main market for the British threads?
I would say automotive aftermarket and machinery repair is where we're seeing most of our British going out. It's not terribly common anymore. I don't think anybody is truly trying to manufacture something on a continuous basis with it. But if you've got to put something back together that came apart or came from someplace that was still using British threads, then you need the mating pieces. But pipe threads have stayed British on a lot of equipment.
Oh, you're right, actually, aren't you?
Yes. Pipe parallel and pipe taper.
Okay, yeah. So that's probably, in terms of the British thread, that's probably the main sort of line that you supply.
In current manufacturing, yes, it's mostly the pipe threads.
Okay.
Now, bicycles have a thread standard of their own, Cycle Engineering Institute, and the CIE threads are quite a difficult situation because they're not very commonly available. We can identify it for someone, but I think there's a place in California that still does the CIE threads, but that's about it.
You mean bicycles like the ones that people ride around the...
Raleighs and Schwinn's, yes.
So they don't... Oh, I thought that was sort of metric stuff. So it's a different thread of all...
It looks like metric. It measures a little bit different, and there's a thread angle that's a little unusual with it.
Wow, where did that come from?
Time and grade.
Okay.
Well, you see, this is why people tune in to Fully Threaded. You don't get this kind of stuff just anywhere, folks. Now, I was sensing that the conversation was going to swerve into another conversation that you folks have in common, and that's automobiles. Are you a collector of British automobiles, Bonnie, or are you kind of more of a fan of Detroit iron? What's your fancy?
Well, most of our stuff is Detroit iron.
There you go.
I lust after a lot of the much too expensive, lovely cars, but we have a few odd pieces of interesting Detroit stuff.
So, first of all, how did you, this is not particularly Fastener stuff, but it's a little bit of interest for people who don't know you that well. How did you get interested in cars?
I have probably always had an interest in cars. I tended to be the one that went with my father on weekends to the auto parts store and could look at what was new at the dealership and so forth. And I just have long had an interest in interesting cars.
Good. Well, I'm very impressed by that. And at least you need to at least tell us one of your cars, the one I know about, which is a car that I think is one of America's beautiful cars, the Avanti.
Yes, we have a 1972 Avanti. I believe that we were the second owners of it, and my husband still uses it on a daily basis during the summer.
Wow.
It's one of the early fiberglass cars designed by Raymond Loewy, and there are not very many of them. Up until recently, they were still turning out a couple of cars a year, but I think even that has stopped now.
Okay, so just briefly run down the list of the other ones then.
We have a Plymouth Prowler and Crossfire, 1951 Packard, Model A, and a couple of older Ford tractors.
You have to have a decent amount of space to park all that stuff.
Oh, yes.
Right.
Everything except the Crossfire gets undercover every night.
Okay.
Yeah, now it's not that we don't find metric fasteners just a thrilling subject, but boy, now we're really getting off into something that could consume a lot of time. This is an area that we've spent countless hours on. But I think we'll kind of leave it there and leave a little bit of suspense and so forth. Let's let everybody know how they can find out a little bit more about your company after hearing this. The website is www.metricscrew-toolco.com. And they can read more about your company there, Bonnie.
Yes, they can.
And we thank you so much for joining us on Fully Threaded. It was just great to have you, and we appreciate you being with FCH as well.
Well, thank you, folks, for putting forward a wonderful product that is easy to use, and hopefully it helps the rest of the industry, too.
Yeah, we hope that, too.
NFDA Fall Conference coverage coming up next.
This is Sue Rice with the FCH team. It's my job to make sure that as an FCH member, you receive the highest possible benefit from your participation in the network. Did you know that once you're logged into FCH, you have access to exclusive search tools, site statistics, and tracking information about your inventory and source finder inquiries? It's all just a click away, and I'm happy to walk you through it. If it's time to refresh your inventory, don't worry. We'll run your listings through our scrubber software and get you up and running in a very short time. If you can attach a spreadsheet to an email, you can list inventory on FCH. We can also show you how to optimize your listings to attract the most hits for your type of fastener. Send email to Sue at fastenersclearinghouse.com and let me help you get the most from the FCH sourcing network. I look forward to hearing from you soon.
This is Chris from Hudson Fasteners, Fastener News at Twitter, and Fascinating Domain. And you're listening to Fully Threaded Radio.
Thank you for having me, David Panich, the Distributor Board. How many organizations out there have a website? Back in '95, it was just a couple of you. Today, of course you have a website. That's a given. That's really the lowest cost of entry to even being a business. But you may not know some of these facts. There are only 133 million blogs. That was a couple weeks ago. There's more today. There are people tweeting on Twitter at the rate of only 500,000 tweets per hour. Again, that was yesterday. Today it's more. And how many of you have Facebook company pages? Anyone out there? Oh, I see a couple hands. Fantastic. Because as Frank was talking, and Mike has also mentioned, the future is now. Facebook is here. There are over 500 million pages, and those are websites, just on Facebook. And there are people spending time on Facebook at the rate of 700 billion minutes per month. So when you look at your customers and you think about your customers, and you believe, because I came out of the fastener industry, and if you believe that your customers are not in those 700 billion minutes, you're wrong. They are on Facebook. I also wanted to mention LinkedIn, YouTube, and of course this is not, I don't sell any of these products, so this is not an advertisement, but I'm telling you, these technologies are out there, they're readily available, they are free. But I also wanted to give you a quick tutorial, very quick, on what Web 2.0 is. Some of you may know what that is, which is terrific. Bear with me for a moment. It's a technology that someone came up with. Technologists love to come up with acronyms, and we're going to call something Web 2.0. I'm not even sure what Web 1.0 was, but I can tell you a little bit about Web 2.0. And one of the differences is allowing visitors to actually add content to your website. That's what blogging is all about. It's the ability to comment back on something, and it's also the ability using Facebook and telling people about your statuses, having them comment on your statuses. The ability to share content on the web is also important, and the ability to connect through others. Back in '95, when you probably first thought about putting a website up, there's probably no thought of or really connecting with others. It was marketing. It was a way to get your brochure up onto the World Wide Web. Well, now it's Web 2.0, and it's connecting people. People are communicating through that. And Web 3.0 is coming. And I don't want you to get caught too far behind, because those of you who are saying, Web 2.0, I still have time to jump on that bandwagon. That hasn't pulled out of the station. It's pulling out of the station. So what's Web 3.0? Some of this stuff is going to perhaps scare you. But your browser, that place you go to find things on the web, it's going to know what you like and what you don't like. And it's going to present you with the things you like. And it's not going to waste your time on the million of other things that you don't care about. So you're going to receive this information back to you that's relevant. It's going to tailor that experience for you. The context of your searches are being analyzed, and they're also going to produce much more accurate results. If you remember back when you first started browsing the web, it was a pretty frustrating experience. It was not only frustrating because we were all using dial-up modems, which was, well, it's okay, the page is loading, I'm going to head for some coffee, I'll be back when the page is done loading. But now it's coming back very fast, but I don't know about you, but I type things in, I search for things, and I look at them, at the results, and I think, what the heck did it think I typed in there? This is not what I was looking for. So there are things that are going to be different, and they are here. They are already happening out there. And also there's something called mashups. Like I said, technologists like to come up with all sorts of things to make them sound smart because no one knows what the heck they're talking about. So I'm going to give you an example of what a mashup is. And it's really a way of merging applications. So a particular mashup that you can go and you can look at right now is something with Google Maps and CRM. There are CRM companies that are integrating with Google Maps so that as your contact comes up, the map comes up. And driving directions to them from, because of GPS, where you are. So all those things are here, they're advancing, and I just want to make sure that my fellow Fastener brethren don't miss out on some of these great opportunities to really take a leap forward and compete really in the world market. So what should high-performing fasteners distributors do with social networking? Because we could sit back and we can say, you know what, that's not for us. We're fastener distributors. No one does this stuff. They do. So one of the things I think you just have to get used to is to embrace change. Change is happening. It's happening faster than ever before. And it's important that you really change your mindset about that. You have to leverage technology. You have to take a look at what's out there and available. And as we've been talking about different opportunities, what I'm hoping you won't do is go back to your offices next week and say, oh, that was kind of interesting, and then get right back into the trenches working on things. Think about the things that you can do today with your business, with your current technology, and I'm going to talk a little bit further about some technology that's out there that doesn't cost anything other than a little bit of time to actually use it. You need to be engaging your customers. Social networking is all about engagement, is all about building relationships. The technology is there, the ability is there, customers are looking for it. So absolutely engage your customers because you will build loyalty. I remember maybe 10 years ago talking to some fastener distributors and other distributors, and they said, not doing that web thing. I'm not sharing very much information on that web because my competitors are going to steal it, and they're going to put me out of business. Well, guess what? All the information is out there. If someone wants to find out about your middle name of your youngest son, they're finding it out. It's there. It's just available. So what we can do is really check out some other things. Check out Facebook. Check out LinkedIn, which I haven't talked about yet. YouTube. Get some videos up there. That is the absolute #1 requested search. You should have videos up there. You know, I can't tell you what they're going to be about, but you need to be thinking about what can I get up there. And you need to think about Twitter. How is that going to help you, again, from a business perspective? And this is not B2C. This is not selling to the consumer. This is business to business. So, is social networking a sales tool? I think you could probably tell me the answer, but I'm going to give it to you. Yes, absolutely, without a doubt. And the reason I can say that pretty confidently, I think, and I saw someone wearing a Worth shirt, so you'll see your logo up here, but these folks have that tagline on their websites. Find us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, find us on YouTube. I don't think that they're just doing it because it's cool. I think they're perhaps measuring it, and I think perhaps they know it's working. And I would suggest to you, don't let them do it alone. That's costing them nothing. It's costing them some time, and we'll talk a little bit about that, but it's costing them virtually nothing to do this. So I'm not David Letterman, I'm David Panich, so I only have the top 5 things, not the top 10 things that you should know about social networking. Number 5, it's not going away. You can close your eyes, you can pretend it's going to go away. It's here. It's here, it's available to you, you should be exploring it. The interesting thing is the usage of these types of things. Social networking is not growing in the 18 to 25-year-olds. It's the 50 to 59-year-olds. They're jumping on it. Talk to anyone who was connected up with high school friends from 35 years ago. It's because of Facebook. It's not because the phone system's gotten better. Important to know, while some of those big players may have hired a whole marketing team to deploy their social networking and social marketing initiatives, you don't need to. You can do this in a small amount of consistent time, and I can tell you that if you can devote 15 to 20 minutes a day, you will be successful at social networking. On your sales team, if they aren't out there, if they are not pounding the computer using social networking, they are missing out on a huge opportunity to grow their sales. It's important to not just create a strategy, put it in concrete, and say, this is what we're doing, because it is just too fluid. Things are changing too fast, and the things, when you think about Facebook, anyone have any idea how old Facebook is? 7 years old. It's mind-boggling. There will be something next, and it won't be in another 70 years. It's going to be here in 2011 and in 2012. So when you develop your strategies, keep in mind you can't keep them, rock solid like that. And lastly, your customers are using it. So don't deceive yourself in thinking our industry hasn't caught up with this yet. They're not quite there yet. They're there. And I encourage you to not overlook this, to not let the future pass you by. It is here. So thank you very much, and I know we're going to be opening up to questions from many of you. Thank you.
To David, yes. Could you just, you talked about Twitter, and I'd love to get an example from you of a good Twitter B2B application. I mean, you can't do much on Twitter, right? You put a statement, maybe you put a link, but could you give me just one quick application of what would be a really good use for the folks in this room for Twitter, other than kids using it?
Sure, absolutely. And I'm going to give you actually two, if you don't mind, just since I've got the mic right now. The first one is not really a specific example, but just something that is important to remember with that particular technology. People are following people. If anyone knows about Twitter, you can follow people, you can have followers, etc. Your customers, your prospects are out there doing this. They're twittering potentially about you. If you're not paying any attention to it, you could be losing some opportunities, you could be losing some credibility. So I can't tell you from a B2B standpoint that there's a great way of marketing, although I do want to give you one example that it wasn't really marketing, it was more customer service. And perhaps you've heard about this. This goes back a few months. There were some delays in an airport. It was in New York. And there were people backed up in line. No one was moving. No one knew what was going on. Even the ticket takers were just very, very slow. And not 300, 3 people in that line tweeted about it. And they tweeted about that particular airline, and they tweeted just out to the airwaves. 5 minutes later, 2 more gate people were brought there because that airline was monitoring what people were tweeting about. They brought them right to that gate. So from a customer service standpoint, that was phenomenal, a huge win for them. They turned, as we were talking about earlier, turned a horrible situation into kind of a wow moment. So that's more on the consumer side, but I think that there will be more and more opportunities on the business side because there are technologies that can monitor Twitter, so you don't have to be on Twitter looking and trying to figure out what's happening. You can put in your company name, and it will alert you when your company name shows up in a tweet, and you can get right to that tweet.
What you can also do is tweet about your company. You're excited about something you're launching, you're excited about something you're about to do within your business, tweet about it. You push it out there, and you will see people will pick up on that. You'd be surprised when you might not think, people aren't really monitoring that, but these alerts that we're talking about, they get notified of that information. What you could also do is you could use Twitter to blog information out. So there's some practical things you might take away from it is everybody has things happening within their business, good or bad. You can tweet out the positive internally of what you want your customers to know about your company. New product, new service, new offering, what have you.
So you're saying to tweet your own horn?
Yep. Yeah, good.
That's IT humor. Right here, man. Right here. Next question.
In my company, we've always resisted letting our employees have instant messaging because I hated it because there was no record of it. I love the fact that emails, someone asks for something, it's going to be responded to, and it's going to be in our system. I'm kind of interested in your take on IM and the whole concept of chat, as well as, can I just have a quick set of hands of the people in this room? How many people let and encourage their employees to use IM during the workday for business purposes? 1, 2, 3. Interesting.
First, if you use a corporate IM, there is a record. So absolutely similar to email, it's tracked. So if you're worried about that. But I think, more importantly is where I've seen it very effective is when someone needs an answer. I mean, the world is not like it was 25 years ago when faxing was a fast way of getting information to someone. Now, I don't know, even on email, if you're typically in an office, don't you think the expectation when someone emails you is that you're emailing them right back, you're looking at it? IM is obviously the equivalent of email on steroids, but it's helping make decisions quicker, getting things resolved faster. So I think there's a huge benefit to doing it.
I have customers who are instant messaging me and texting me with questions about the software. And the way I look at it is if I'm not answering it, they have the patience of a 10-year-old generally, and they're going to go someplace else. But if they can grab me right away, hey, I've got this question and I can answer it. They're going to stay with me, and it's just another level of customer support.
Good question.
Mine is very related to the social networking question that Peter just asked, because I think as a group we obviously have a problem getting our arms around at this time. It's a real, live, real-time system. You say when we get tweeted, we turn around and answer the question. But how, if you have a business storefront that's on Twitter or is on Facebook, do you need to have somebody hired to monitor that? Because it seems like somebody needs to be there to answer real time, or that, I'll call it a storefront, is going to be irrelevant after a while. So when you say, I've heard the stat that 20 minutes a day is all you need, just talk a little bit more about that, because I think we're scared a little bit as a whole to push out Facebook or some of these technologies.
I think I would first answer it by saying, if you don't do it, your competitors will, and if your competitors are doing it, you may become irrelevant. So I know that's probably not the answer you really wanted to hear. The other side is, as you see the value in responding quickly to these types of alerts that you're going to get, I think you may actually be able to monetize what that kind of response is getting you, as opposed to it just being a burden. Very similar to when you respond to emails today. Way back when, there was no email. It was a fax. You had the luxury of uncurling the page for a while and then responding when you felt like it. With email, there is that need to respond. So there's no doubt that while the technology is getting better and better, we're expected to do more and more. The days of, I can get back to them tomorrow, good or bad, and I'm not a futurist, but I believe that things are going to be happening faster in the future, not slower. So I think the sooner we can grasp these concepts and figure out, how do I make it only 20 minutes a day? Again, I don't necessarily mean that it's 20 minutes at 8 o'clock in the morning. It may be 20 seconds here and 30 seconds there, and maybe it's an hour. But maybe it's spread out over 2 or 3 people. But it's not a person that you need to hire to manage all of this because of how the technology works.
Great, thank you. Next question.
Okay, try to elaborate a little bit here if you could, or inform me on this LinkedIn. First of all, I got on Facebook for about 38 minutes and got out, okay? I mean, I don't know, there's some weird stuff going on out there. Okay, but that was a personal Facebook, and maybe this corporate thing is, Okay, but in the last month, I bet I've got 5 invitations to join LinkedIn. And all of the people I got it from I know, and I'm not sure I want to link in with any of them, but what is it just another Facebook for executives? Or so if somebody would expound, that'd be great.
Sure. I was wondering why you had not accepted my invitation yet, but I understand now. Cutting right to the chase, LinkedIn is Facebook for businesses. I mean, that's what it is. I'm going to tell you a quick story. I tweeted about this, about a week ago, because on LinkedIn, it shows you how many connections people have. Once they hit 500, it just says 500 plus. And my tweet was, how can you possibly know more than 500 people that you can actually introduce to someone else? And I happened to get someone who said, you're wrong. I said, okay. Started a dialogue. And he said I was wrong, and I sort of came around a little bit. He has 6,900 connections. I said, what? 69? Come on. So how do you know 6,900 people? He said, I don't. But when I want to search for manufacturers of computer cases that use fasteners, out of my 6,900, 50 people come up. He said, David, how many people show up for you? And I said, none. He said, that's the power. So he is able to get introductions to people to help his sales efforts, to help his connection efforts, even though he doesn't really know them. So I would encourage you, I see a rebuttal coming.
Don't you get a lot of stuff you don't want to see? If you did this LinkedIn, you get all this stuff from people, and you got to look at it.
No, it doesn't really work that way. You'll get, LinkedIn works, they'll send you an email alert once a week with what's happening with your network. To be honest, mine goes into my junk file and I never see it. But I use LinkedIn every day because I look up LinkedIn. Whenever I meet with people, I want to know who they're linked in with. I happen to use, I think it was Mike's profile in part of this, because I went through sort of a tutorial on how to use LinkedIn, at least LinkedIn 101. And so I don't see what Mike's doing on a regular basis, but when I know that I'm going to meet with Mike, or if I'm interested in finding people that Mike might know, I go right in there, I dive in, I can search his contacts, his connections, and I can say, well, oh, you know what, he knows Frank. Great. Mike, can you introduce me to Frank? Here's my offer. So you can't just get introduced because, hey, I'm a really nice guy, introduce me to your friends. That's really not how it should work. It works because I know Frank works at Activent, and Activent, I can really help with this or with that. So when I tell Mike that, he's then more compelled to want to introduce me. But LinkedIn is really a great way of connecting with people, but you'd be surprised at who's on there. I have friends who I'm shocked. There's the president of Boeing Middle East is on LinkedIn. Now, he may not take your connection, but if you're trying to get into Boeing, guess what? He's my connection, and you could then contact me and say, hey, this is what I think I can offer Boeing. Can you make an introduction? So that could be pretty powerful, as opposed to trying to call in and talk to someone at Boeing.
Another practical example we've used is, you meet people, they leave their organization, you've got a solid relationship with them. Well, you can find them. Where did they end up at some other company that potentially is a consumer? That's been a real straightforward thing that I've done. And then or you can just look for people that have worked for a certain company, and then you potentially can find some connections that way. It's powerful stuff. Absolutely. Who's
I have two quick questions. One is was Frank, and you were talking about when people have the online ordering with the websites. The only thing, we've done that at our company, and the biggest thing is you got to overcome the double entry issue. So you really need to work on like the flat file because otherwise they'll enter it in there to go into your system, and you got to be able to download it into your own system. And then the other thing I had a question on was the Facebook and the YouTube as far as security within the larger companies. I know our owners are a little bit concerned about, people getting to hack in and causing computer issues, because we did have access to Facebook for a while, and we had a lot of problems, and our IT guys basically said, we got to shut this down because it's causing too much spam and junk got into the system. And I know there's security, but they're very nervous about people getting into maybe private information.
I'll start the B2B discussion, and I'll give you some commentary on the security side. But, if you have a website and it doesn't have that integration point to the back-end system, whether it's your back-end system or even your customer's back-end system, then it's just a glorified printer or fax machine, right? So one of the things that you have to look for, you want to look for, is that the web technology you're using and the provider of that web technology and the ERP system that you're on and the provider of that ERP system has that middleware or go-between to get those two applications communicating with one another. Because I'll agree that if it's not there, it's really, at that point, it's putting up your catalog for people to look at. Outside of that, it's really serving no purpose other than getting your name out there. On the security piece, and I'll pass it around, that's really a company-by-company situation. I mean, most IT organizations, I'll take Activent, for example. Our IT organization wants to lock a lot of things down. And what we took as an organization approach is it's the business that dictates how we're going to run the company, not the IT shop. So if we want to do certain things a certain way, you're going to go figure out how you're going to get it done. And when you figure out how to get it done, we'll help you with that. But at the end of the day, if IM, Facebook, Twitter, email, the web is going to give us a better ability of servicing our customers and generating revenue and us communicating with one another, we're going to do it. Now, the IT person that would be sitting up here would have a different opinion. But that's the way the organization's run within Activent.
The integration aspect is critical. I can't tell you how many companies we'll walk into and they've got a warehouse application and a CRM and an accounting and they've got, it should all be talking to each other. And if it's not, lots of spreadsheets and so on and so forth, you're killing yourself. You're not only missing, but you're making duplicate data entries, you're transferring information. One of the best stories that I heard was a board meeting where all the members of this company came together and they were all going to decide strategy. And it's all the top people, and this is a true story. And they sat around, and accounting started talking about numbers, and marketing started talking about numbers, and the sales department started talking about numbers, and they're all different. Now, how are you going to make a decision on which way the company should go with that? So if you've got systems that are not talking to each other, or if you don't, if you have a system that does, it's all one system, you really need to take a look at that.
Next question.
Very interesting to hear about all these things that can happen, but don't you think we should be a little critical to some of those things? Spending time on something that maybe isn't too valuable. I think texting back and forth. Before we had emails, we talked to each other in the phone, and we could solve a problem in about 5 minutes. Now we have an email string that is 1 mile long. Going back and forth, and not everybody reads everything what's in that email, so it gets misinterpreted on the way. And then suddenly you go into a fight. Don't you think we have to be a little bit careful on what we use, Facebook, Twitter? I understand that some of the LinkedIn might be very useful, but there's a lot of not very useful information out there that we could waste a lot of time on.
Sure, I'll give you a true story about that. First of all, I think email is the worst form of communication on the planet. But it's what we do today. But I'll give you an example. This is a true story. I was sitting in the O'Hare airport. Let's say it's the three of us. And the one guy was here. His buddy was right next to him. And all of a sudden I hear him say, "Did you just email me what time my flight is?" And he's like, what? And he said, "Did you just email me what time the flight is?" He goes, "Yeah, well, I saw that you were busy." He's like, "I'm sitting right next to you." Okay. So that's a true story. So the thing I'd say about that is you're right. You don't want to abuse any form of communication, whether it's email, whether it's IM, whether it's texting. We mentioned it earlier. You still don't want to take the people out of it. People are people. You still want to interact and have that level of interaction. And there are certain situations that you have to pick up the phone, or you need to pick up the phone, or you need to go on site, or you need to visit people. And I wasn't the guy that sent the email, by the way.
I'm going to be the contrarian. Teenagers today, on average, are texting 2,200 texts a month. It is absolutely absurd. I don't know what they could possibly be texting. I have 2 teenagers. Have no idea. But they're doing it. And I happen to also be the president of our school board. And it kills me because they cannot communicate the way our generation communicates. They just don't. Now, I could sit up here and say, enough, I'm not going to let it happen, but I'm not that good. And I agree we should be cautious about some of the technology, but don't close your eyes to where it's going. And while Mike's example of losing a deal because of email today, tomorrow you might lose it because you said, well, can I meet you on Friday? And they said, no, they were due yesterday. Sorry. So I think each instance is unique, but things are changing. And I don't like where they're going, but I'm jumping on that bandwagon because I don't know what else is coming down the pike. And I think we just need to be aware of what's out there and certainly pick and choose where you want to spend your time, because you could spend certainly more than 24 hours a day trying to manage all of these different things. But I think you will find value. You mentioned LinkedIn. Absolutely, there's value there. There are values in all of these communications when used properly.
If you're going to open up your business to Facebook, you're basically saying, okay, anybody can go out and do this. And so now you have all your employees that have access. They're all on the internet and they're using their computer, so they can be out there doing, on Facebook when they should really be doing something that you're paying them for. And then they could be downloading, they could be doing things that are adversely affecting the network and your ability to do business, just the speed of the system or something like that.
An important piece of this is an internet policy, so that you can certainly guide your employees as to what is permissible and what is not. I think that going on Facebook to look at a competitor's Facebook page to gather intelligence about them, absolutely do it every day. If it's chatting with your cousin in LA, that's not acceptable. So I think that's part of the challenge, is as we need to embrace some of these technologies, how do we protect the corporation? And I think you have to do it, unfortunately, with some policies and some level of supervision over what they're doing. There's technology out there, too, that can monitor exactly where they've been and every keystroke they've hit. If you have a real big problem, then I would say you need to, take a look at your, the leadership team and really help them understand how to use it productively. What are the productive uses for it?
I think the bottom line is the customer demands are going up. This stuff's not going away. I want to reiterate the challenge to go home and do something about this. I mean, it doesn't have to be all of this stuff, but figure out which ones are some of these things that make sense for your business and just go home Monday and start doing it. I really do want to encourage you guys to do something proactively. So again, thank you to our panel.
There's more Fully Threaded Radio coming up next.
FastenersClearinghouse.com. Search and source from over 500,000 line items, all just a mouse click away and available at no charge. When the need arises, you won't find a better place to locate hard-to-find fastener inventory. It's where you need to be.
This is Joe Truckee of Cal Fasteners, and Fasteners Clearinghouse works for us.
This is Robert Wanzer, and Fasteners Clearinghouse works for American Imperial.
This is Andy Pell from ScrewCrew.com, and FCH works for the fastener industry.
Join the sourcing network now and show your inventory to a whole new market. Turn slow movers into cash. List up to 10,000 line items. Show them to distributors only or to the world. FastenersClearinghouse.com. It's where you need to be.
Hi, this is Hugh Hewitt for the Injured Marine Semper Fi Fund, www.semperfifund.org. Over the past 7 years, twice a year, the wonderful people who operate the Semper Fi Fund and many amazing Marines who have been the beneficiaries of the charities that have supported the Semper Fi Fund, including many thousands of individual donors, have come into my radio studio to tell their amazing stories of serving their country, of being wounded, and how the Semper Fi Fund has helped them make that transition back to recovery. Unfortunately, Bethesda and Walter Reed are full again. Fund. More and more men and women are coming back from the war injured, sometimes awfully so. We need the Semper Fi Fund to be there for these Marines and those soldiers, sailors, and airmen who served alongside of them. Please consider a gift to the Semper Fi Fund. Very low overhead, extraordinary capacity to get money where it needs to get in a hurry, and great management, including some of the senior Marines who've ever served under the flag. When you're looking for something to do that will make an impact, please check out the Semper Fi Fund. That's www.semperfifund.org, www.semperfifund.org.
Hi, this is Scott from Hunt's Hardware and Supply, fastener supplier for Northeast Wisconsin. You're listening to Fully Threaded Radio.
Brian and Eric, your online fastening soul brothers, back with you.
All right. Okay.
Now, the NFDA panel discussion that we just heard was actually quite a bit longer than what we just played, but that was really the part that was appropriate for the show today. And the gentleman who was doing most of the talking was David Panich, and he's from the Distributor board. He was joined also by Frank Heenan of Activant and also Mike Davies of Hightower. He's the Vice President of CRM Sales for Hightower. During the Q&A session, that was led by NFDA President Jim Derry, and there were a variety of people that were asking the questions, including Matt Ulrich, the NFDA Vice President, and I believe Steen Hanson from Bussard was also one of the questioners.
Yes, and there's a couple of others too.
That's right.
Particularly the guy who asked the questions about why anyone would use LinkedIn.
Yeah, it was pretty dramatic. You kind of had to be there to see everyone raise their hand. Really, it was like the whole room's on LinkedIn. It was pretty dramatic, you know?
Yeah. Of course, they didn't actually say if they actually use it properly, but they at least are set up.
That's right. So as we said at the top of the show, technology is really a theme, and it's, like it or not, coming to a fastener distributor near you. And keeping in that theme, everybody should go out to a website that I don't recommend all that often. It's newsweek.com, and there's a story from the October 3rd edition called Android Invasion. And really what this thing does is it gives a very good overview, a rundown of the mobile computing platforms that are really these cell phones that are turning into little handheld computers, and the battle of Google and Apple.
Yes, well, it's really become pretty clear that these smartphones are going to get smarter and smarter, and these little portable iPad-type computers, they're going to be major parts of what are all of our computers that we have in the next decade.
That's right. And to give you an idea about that, there's roughly 7 billion people on the planet. They say by the end of next year, there's going to be 5 billion of these devices out there.
Wow, I can hardly imagine that. But remember, the other struggle is to get these things into the TV sets. I mean, and Apple and Google are fighting over that space too.
Well, we'll be covering that as best we can here at Fully Threaded Radio. And with that, I'll remind everybody that I hope you will communicate with us. Let us know how we're doing. Let us know what kind of thoughts you have about the show. And you can do that by sending email to ftr@fullythreaded.com.
And remember that by going to the Fully Threaded website, you can click on the button and subscribe to the podcast, and that will automatically set it up to load into your iPhone. I believe now that you should be able to also subscribe to these podcasts from your BlackBerry. You can't click a link on the web to do that. You do it from your BlackBerry.
So getting back to what Bonnie Carter was saying in our conversation there, I was surprised to hear about that Avante. I really, not knowing as much about that particular model, I was surprised to hear that it's a fiberglass car.
Well, it was a pretty advanced car in its day. It was designed by one of America's famous designers, Raymond Loewy, did the Studebakers. Beautiful cars he designed. But it wasn't really the first of the fiberglass cars. I mean, I think the first Corvette, 53 Corvette, was the first production fiberglass car, actually. And speaking of fiberglass cars, we had a note in couple of episodes ago about the problems that Ferrari was having with their fiberglass cars.
Right.
But especially the car called the Ferrari Italia 458. And I know that all of our Fastener listeners who happen to own these cars will be very, very relieved to know that Ferrari has sort of fixed this problem by going back to a really common garden rivet instead of all their fancy adhesives.
Oh, I wonder what Tony Lutcher has to say about that.
Well, he probably would have been one of the ones telling him to be practical, I would think. Mind you, I don't know if this will really upset or affect Eric Clapton's order of one of these cars.
Oh, is that right? Well, I guess we shouldn't be surprised. I mean, after all, he's a guy who you would expect to avoid that whole flame-out issue, right?
Well, why is that?
Well, everybody remembers his classic 1993 album, Into the Fire.
Okay, mate, you are really scraping for these show closers.
Well, I guess you're right. Maybe I should stick to selling fasteners, right?
Okay.
And with that, we'll put episode 13 in the books.
Lucky 13.
For Brian Musker, this is Eric Dudas. Thanks for listening, everybody. And we'll talk to you next time.
Fully Threaded Radio is a production of Fastener's Clearinghouse. Music provided by Audionautics.
I can't think of anything else to say at the moment, okay?